Okay, we are live on another edition of the Edlow podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And I am here with Dr. Orest. Dr. Orest of www.oldguystalktome.com, helping guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those they love. Dr. Orest, welcome to the
Yeah,
Edlow podcast.
thank you. Actually, I'm sorry. I should have put that. I guess I'm going to take a reread my bio again. That website doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, good. Okay, well, what's the new one?
www.thestandard.academy.
Okay, so
And
tell me, why'd you change it?
my focus changed completely, and a little bit of rebranding, and the fact that right now the biggest thing I'm working on is being a men's life coach.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Well, tell me, why is it that if someone looks at your bio, you are very much focused on men and masculinity, and I want to know why that focus.
Uh, because it's at threat.
Hmm.
It's being threatened.
Hmm.
And so Josh, let's see how many people I can piss off today.
I'm sure a lot. I'm sure a lot.
I'm sure a lot since you told me the makeup of your audience. I'm sure I'm going to piss off a shitload of people.
Okay.
But I really don't care. I'm too old to care.
Okay.
To be real honest, I'm 72 and I really don't give a shit very often. Not that I
I
try to be an asshole, but I really don't give a shit very often.
Well, I got to tell you, this is the reason why I started a podcast, and that is that I believe everybody should have a voice. And if you can't listen to someone who you disagree with and try to at least find some common ground or understand where they're coming from, if you're so upset or triggered that you can't have those conversations, then what are we doing with life, right?
Yeah.
One of the I told you the makeup. I got friends that are part of the LGBTQ community. I have some very religious friends. They often contradict, and part of the reason why I wanted to interview people here was so that they maybe can listen to the other side and kind of find some common ground and realize we actually have a lot more in common than we don't. And can I ask you, what do you think the difference is between masculinity and, say, like what people would call toxic masculinity? Or do you believe in toxic masculinity at all?
Okay. Okay. So a person who has a toxic personality that is male
Mm-hmm.
is an asshole.
Okay.
A person who has a toxic personality that is a female is a bitch.
Okay.
Okay. I don't believe there's anything quote unquote toxic about masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, when people talk about that, they're dealing in stereotypes that they can never say, oh, I actually know a person like that.
Mm.
But I do know a lot of assholes. And I do know a lot of bitches, and
Okay.
those are toxic personalities. So having a toxicity in your personality is not gender specific. You don't have to. It's not just limited to the XY. It's the double X that also has a toxic personality.
I see. Okay. So you think really masculinity in itself is not toxic, just people are toxic who may have some masculine traits. Does that sound about right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So why, again, like you said that masculinity is under threat? Where do you think that threat is coming from, and why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, there's a group in our society and who happen to be woke most of the time that talk about toxic masculinity,
Hmm.
and so they put it down, and they want men to be softer,
Hmm.
to be more compassionate. Well, men are generally pretty damn compassionate. They just don't show it the way you may like to.
Hmm.
And the other thing is that when shit goes bad, you don't need a compassionate person. You need someone who can take care of shit when it goes sideways, when it takes bad. You're not looking for compassion when there's a hurricane brewing and power lines are down. You're not looking for a compassionate man.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, and I know there's women that do these jobs, but the majority of them are men, and they
Hmm.
they probably got the tool belt on, and it's hanging, and probably when they're out working, their butt crack is showing, but they're out there working hard to create a life. So I don't think that like I said, so many times, people talk about, these stereotypes. I listen to these things. I'm going like, who in the hell are you talking about? I'm 72 years old and I've lived on this earth a lot. And I meet a lot of men. I don't run into those kind of men. Oh, I run into men that are very hard, that are really hard. I mean, my coaching group that I'm part of is really hard. I mean, you would probably, a lot of people would probably think those people in there are toxic, but they're compassionate, they're giving, and they get results. The other thing that's going on in our society, Josh, is that there is a generational decline in testosterone levels in men. It's huge. It's about 1% a year. And this is not tinfoil hat shit. This is the New England Journal of Medicine, among other things. There's a big Massachusetts a male normative aging study, which looked over 3 generations, and it reports this. And it's significant. It's so significant that, and this is not the first time it's happened, just recently, the lab companies that measure testosterone levels dropped the normal range from 1100 to 960, and the low normal used to be in the 300s. Now it's 250. And normal does not mean healthy. That's the other thing. What they do is they take the average of a bunch of unhealthy males. So it's a whole thing going on.
Can I ask you?
I'm sorry.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? Is that those studies that are in? Is that American specific or is that worldwide?
That is worldwide.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's not American specific. And the other thing that's occurring is that sperm counts have dropped by 50% over the last 30 years.
Do they know why?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a big article, there's a big thing in the Annals of Physiology. Again, this is not some tinfoil journal. It's basically, it's refereed, highly refereed. You don't get your shit in there. And this is an article that was put out by some people from Hebrew University and also NYU, an epidemiologist from NYU and a few others. And they talk about what happens is that because what we call endocrine disrupting compounds, what's happening is to males in utero, their balls are not dropping at the right time. And so their testicles are not developing properly. And consequently, you have both low sperm and low testosterone. Now, what many people don't realize, but it's really kind of like the thing that a lot of guys don't talk about, is that the doctors who I've interviewed, I haven't had a podcast, but it's on a hiatus right now. The doctors that I've interviewed in the male testosterone space tell me that they're seeing men in their 20s with lower baseline values than men in their 50s and 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not, I've talked to young men like that. And you see people talk about, well, men aren't as masculine as they used to be. And that's true. That's true, because you get your masculinity from your testosterone.
Right.
There's, we have a family member who, all of a sudden is doing all sorts of physical stuff. And my wife was looking at me and she goes like, well, he should be really muscular. I go like, he's not taking any testosterone. You can't, physiologically, you can't put muscle on after a certain age, unless you have testosterone. It's physiologically impossible. You can do all the damn workout you want. It's not possible.
Right. So now, do they know why it is that in the last 20, 30 years that it's dropped? I mean, we notice, okay, so the kids, the testicles aren't dropping at the right time. Is there some reason for that they found?
What they're talking about is all the toxins in the environment, the plastics, the GMOs, the pesticides, all that shit is affecting a woman. She gets basically becomes toxic from the environment. And so it affects the baby in utero. And the same thing, actually, the quality of women's eggs are going down. So, 30 years ago when people were having fertility problems, it was usually the woman, but now it's the man. There's even private equity groups uh, creating sperm banks because sperm for sperm banks is actually in short supply these days.
Wow. So now with this, how do we combat this?
Well, I don't know how to combat the environmental toxins. I mean, you can try to go go organic foods, and that's a whole nother conversation about whether they're actually organic. Everybody's doing organic now, but is it really organic?
Right, right.
Um, and so you go organic foods. Be careful. The plastics that you use. Things like that. But it's really in our world, it's hard. It's hard to avoid all these toxins.
Sure.
There's been several studies that said um, in 100% of the samples from testicles of men, there's microplastics.
Hmm.
100%. Yeah, I mean it's almost unheard of to have a 100% result. And people go, well, how did that happen? Well, you have polyester underwear,
Hmm.
and basically burnishing your balls
Hmm.
with that polyester that's putting stuff into your testicles. And so it's a real problem. And I mean I'm not I mean I'm obviously I'm a just so I can piss everyone off a little bit more here. I'm a MAGA guy. There's no doubt about it. I'm a MAGA guy,
Hmm.
and I understand exactly what Robert Kennedy was talking about,
Hmm.
because I mean he's right on that whole toxin thing. He is absolutely correct. Now some of the other stuff, he's wrong and I'm right. By the way, for your audience, I'm always right. Just so you know, I speak the truth,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but I'm always right.
Okay. Well, and on this topic though, I think it's important to talk about your qualifications because you've worked in the medical field.
Right.
So,
Well, I used to be a periodontal regenerative surgeon. I'm not a
mhm,
physician,
mhm,
but I used a lot of regenerative products when we did surgeries in terms of bone grafting and gum grafting and things like that. I was probably one of the. I think I'm positive I was the first person in the Phoenix area to use platelet-rich plasma during
mm,
surgery. That was in 2000.
mm,
Nobody's even talking about it now. It's everybody knows what PRP is. Uh, so so I'm familiar with that. Plus, I've also, when I was doing my podcast, I had an opportunity to interview many doctors that you would consider tip of the spear,
mm,
that are functional medicine doctors, or they used to call them anti-aging. Now they call them functional medicine. Nobody knows what functional medicine means, but if I say
mm.
anti-aging doctor, they understand what
Sure.
I mean. So I spent a lot of time in that space, educating myself, also having guests, and also out of self-interest.
Mm,
Because
mm.
when you're 72, you need to do things in order to create a good quality of life.
And what do you think those things are? Like what do you need to do to create, I mean, like we're talking about testosterone and keeping those things going. How do you do that? How do you optimize your testosterone?
Well, you have to find a doctor who's going to work with you.
Okay.
My primary care doctor does not. I have
Mm,
another doctor, and he and I've been his patient. He's a great disease doctor. If I get sick, he's a great doctor, but he doesn't like what I'm doing in terms of testosterone. He's kind of gotten more comfortable after 30 years. Got comfortable because he sees what my results are, and I laugh at him. And I go like, I see the other 70-year-olds in your reception area.
mm,
I'd rather be me than them.
sure.
Yeah,
Well,
and
tell me,
so
what are the differences there? What are you noticing?
oh, they're okay. So one of the several major things that happen with testosterone when you take it, and I'm optimized. I'm really optimized,
Mhm,
and I have been for over 25 years. And so what happens is that first of all, it affects your attitude.
mm,
Affects your attitude big time. It makes you
mm.
very can do, happy. Remember that? I don't know. You're probably too young to remember that movie, Grumpy Old Men.
Oh, I remember it.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
good
I
one.
mean,
Great one.
those are too low testosterone. I can walk into a gym and tell you who's on testosterone and who's not. It's just
Huh.
real easy to see. So you're grumpy. You maintain muscle mass. You improve your bone density, you improve your heart health, you improve your prostate health, all those things. And there's a recent study that actually that bears that out. It just came out that talks about all the myths surrounding testosterone therapy. And there's lots of myths, lots of scare tactics. And I'm glad I did not listen to them 25 plus years ago.
Okay. So, I mean, if you started doing testosterone, I'm assuming you mean like TRT kind of type stuff. If you were doing that, you had to have been one of the first to do it if it's 25 years ago, or at least it wasn't as heard of back then.
Yeah, it wasn't really heard of, and it was really hard to find doctors that would be willing to work with you, but there were a few here and there. I know I went to first place I went to when I got into space was a Palm Springs Life Extension Clinic, and this was a clinic that the doctor who operated it won a trial against the FDA that was trying to put him in jail for prescribing HGH. And being an attorney, you know how hard it is to beat the federal government.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all. I mean, their success ratio is like 90% or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
huge.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, and you have to have lots of resources. I mean, the only reason Donald Trump isn't in jail is because he's got a shitload of money he can spend on lots of lawyers.
Right. And the best lawyers.
And the best lawyer, and he's not sparing any. And quite frankly, I don't think it's not. For us, it would be debilitating.
Right.
Financially, I don't think it's not affecting his net worth. I mean, he just sold Truth Social for several $1 billion.
Right.
And, it's like,
he's not hurting, that's for sure.
It's not affecting his quality, but it's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass, and it's a big distraction.
Yeah. So now, as you're doing these things, you mentioned you want to be a men's health coach. That's one part of it, testosterone optimization. You think that improves quality of life in all those areas. Does it have any sort of what does a man have to look for to know if he should be doing testosterone optimization?
I would say he doesn't have to look. He just has to look at himself.
Okay.
And see how he feels. I mean, guys always complain, they start in their 40s, they start to lose energy, stamina, they start to get pudgy. I went into one of my doctors and I said, "Holy crap, Greg, you got fat. What happened?" I have a different relationship with doctors than most people do. So I think I'm going to say this. I'm not a physician, consult a physician before doing anything. You're responsible for your own shit. Different people have different results. So that's my disclaimer. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So I would say that almost all men should be on testosterone.
Like in a certain age group, or you mean literally anyone who's an adult?
Well, I mean, if you are a 23-year-old and your testosterone level is 200, I actually know of a couple kids in that area. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Do you know how crappy you feel? You have no libido. All you want to do is sit around, eat, get fat, play video games. You're certainly not interested in sex. I mean, when I was in my 20s, oh my gosh, I was a rabid dog.
Right.
I was.
Right.
I was. Yeah. I mean, I was rabid. I was in college, and it was the 70s. It was great.
Well, do you think, it's interesting because there's kind of going through some sort of what we call a sexual revolution or something going on in the last, I think with the advent of internet and pornography. Do you think any of that has anything to do with this as well? The reason I ask is because I had a life coach who deals with porn addicts, and he seemed to suggest that he thought that with the advent of access of all this different porn, that does have some effect on libido and sex drive.
I do believe it does, and I think it's different at different ages. When you're younger, it rewires your brain to a certain extent and affects that. Also, you're not responsive you become less responsive to normal sexual stimuli. Because you think that the woman should be acting like a porn star when, especially in your early experiences. I remember my early experiences in sex. Holy crap, a minute would have been a long time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it would have been a long time, but sometimes you don't even get a chance to get out of your pants when you're 16, 17,
Right. Right.
uh yeah, it just happens. But this the libido thing is affected. I had a conversation with uh, a pilot for one of the major airlines at a party, and people start. I have, like I said, in my coaching program, I have conversations with men that they would never have with anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
and including their wives.
Mm.
Uh, and so we were talking, and somehow we got onto this whole thing. And he asked me what I did. I told him, da, da, da. And he was talking, and he started telling me. And this guy was buff,
Mm.
60 years old. Happened to be a black man, just very, very handsome. His other job outside being an airline pilot for a minute was a lifeguard at Malibu Beach in
Mm.
California.
Mm.
So
Wow.
just living the life. I'm going like, shit, I want his life.
Right.
Uh, but he was telling me that when he was having sex, he had a hard time ejaculating, coming.
Hmm.
And my question was, how often do you watch porn?
Hmm.
And he goes, like every day. I said, and do you masturbate to the porn? He goes, yeah. Like you can come to the porn, but you can't come inside your girlfriend. He goes,
Hmm.
yeah. I go, well, now you know your answer
Yeah.
because the porn is affecting you.
Hmm. Man, yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if that gets talked about enough. The effect that porn has on your ability to just have normal sexual relations with a normal, with a normal female. I wonder if that has something to do with what we're talking about here with the masculinity part.
Well, yeah. The libido thing is affected by masculinity, but the rewiring of your brain and the lack of or decreased reaction to normal sexual stimuli. That's a porn reaction, and not necessarily testosterone reaction. Though a lot of men, their libido gets lost when they have low testosterone.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I talk to women and they're going like, my husband has lost all interest in having any sort of intimacy.
Mm.
And we kind of get around it, and like, yeah, they're usually about 45, 50 when that starts happening. And
Wow.
then next thing you know, uh, she's one guy I was talking to, yeah, he said he was in a no sex marriage, and I go, yeah, but your wife wasn't. She was fucking the pool boy. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. So that's kind of a thing. Yeah, it's a big issue, especially for younger men, and for older men too, because porn addiction is huge. There was a time I watched stuff, not a lot of porn, but I could feel myself getting sucked into it.
Mm.
And so I said, like, okay, this is not good. This is not good.
Mm.
Let me get
Well,
the fuck out of here.
that's interesting. I want to, that brings me to an interesting point in the addiction part of it. Uh, you sound to me and strike me just reading your bio and hearing you talk. You're a very disciplined person as well, right? What role do you think discipline has in masculinity?
Oh, I think that it's crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial. It's crucial to being the best version that you can be of yourself. I think discipline is crucial, not just to men, but to women also, to be
Mm.
disciplined in
Mm.
order to create the life that you want. You know, the life that you create, and again, I go into this in my coaching program. Um, there's no silver bullets. There's no like big, you know, it's consistent daily actions, small consistent daily actions that help you produce big ass results over
Mm.
time.
Right.
It's rarely is there one big thing, and most of the time, if there is, it peters out.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and so it really is consistent daily action, which requires discipline. It's like working out. I mean, and I'll guarantee there are days I don't want to fucking go to the gym. I
Yeah,
just don't
me
want to go.
too. Me too.
And I
Today,
do.
today is
And
one of those days.
yeah, and there are days that I love going to the gym because I get to show off a little bit and this and that. And people come over and go, "How old are you? Wow, you're lifting that heavy." Um, there's a little vanity that I enjoy at the gym, being one of the older guys and one of the stronger guys in the gym. I hated it. We lived for a while. We lived in a 55 and over community, and I
Mm,
hated it uh, because when I went into the gym, I was literally the strongest person in the room
mm,
by far.
mm.
And I mean, I grunt and people come over. Are you okay? Do I need to call 911? Fuck! I just grunted because I lifted something heavy.
Right,
And it was just like I said, it was kind of like I felt myself dwindling down because I just did not like. When you're around certain people, you become like those people.
right.
And so one of the things we also talk a lot about in my coaching program is who do you surround yourself with?
Mm. Why is that important?
Well, because you become a peer part of your peer group. Now, a lot of times, and I laugh at this because it's sad. It's also, people create their own hell. Um, People will find support groups.
Mm,
Okay,
mhm, mhm,
so you find a support group of people that are getting divorced.
mm.
Well, no one in that fucking group knows what to do about that. They're all getting divorced.
Right.
It's a I guess not quite this bad, not quite that bad, but it's kind of a circle jerk because no
Mhm,
one in that group knows what to do, or else they wouldn't be getting divorced. So
mm,
who's going to lead that group?
mm.
They all sit around. And it's a big pity party, and they all tell each other how bad their wife is, or how bad they were, or both. This and that, and how it's not working out. Da, 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 and they just go round and round in a circle. And um, I can't remember. There was a psychologist on Joe Rogan who talked about, like, the more you talk about something, the more likely it's going to be ingrained in you.
Yeah, it was
And
actually interesting. I know which one you're talking about there because I listened to it too. It was actually a journalist who had written a book about the epidemic of kids who are in therapy and talking about the more you talk about your problems, the more that they kind of manifest, right? They become more part of
yeah,
a problem issue with your issue in your life. Yeah.
yeah. One of the things that, and I used to have a huge victim mentality. I mean, I really did. I mean, I had a huge victim mentality. The world was against me. Everything was happening to me. I had no power and everything else. And I had some major events occur in my life, which were the best and the worst at the same time.
Mm,
Uh, but one of the things I really focus on is I want the solution.
mm,
What is the solution? I'm
mhm,
not interested, and quite frankly, I'm not interested in my coaching program. I'm not interested in making you feel good
mhm.
because the results should make you feel good, not me. I'm
Okay.
not interested in telling you, oh, I feel sorry for you. That's an enabler,
Mhm,
and people do that all the time. What I'm interested in is driving to a solution that you want.
mm.
So I'm not interested in just in you know in kind of the feel good, whatever. I mean, I can make you feel good in like 30 or 40 seconds. We just go smoke a blunt. you
Right.
know, so
Right.
you can, yeah, it's not that hard, or you can have a couple of cocktails, but it's not that hard. But it doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't provide you with a solution. Yeah, I like my cocktails, but I understand my cocktails don't are not a solution to create the life that I want for myself and my wife.
Right. Right. Well,
So
so let me ask you because I know a lot of people, and I think this is actually part of a problem, a larger problem, and that is this victim mentality. A lot of the times, the people who have this victim mentality, they're victims in the problems that they've created themselves, right?
oh, absolutely.
And so you mentioned you for a while you had that. What did you? How did you snap out of that?
Oh, I got beat up. I got beat up real bad.
Okay, you mean like
Not
how?
not physically.
Right.
Well, I know you're a trial lawyer.
Yeah.
So I early in my periodontal career, I got in the middle of a litigation
Mm,
where we were accused of not diagnosing cancer in a patient.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
Uh, we got a Christmas jury, which if you're on the plaintiff side, you love those.
Yeah.
We had a, you know what that means.
Yeah.
We started the trial before Christmas. The plaintiff died during the trial.
Mm,
They when they wheeled him in, I mean, he looked very bad. He was very, very bad, and so that made a huge impression on the jury. I'm thoroughly convinced that we lost the trial on that first day because the
mm,
facts were irrelevant at that point.
mm,
And so, like 6 weeks, I got actually a compliment from the plaintiff's lawyer when I was on the stand because
mm.
I told him, I said, wow, 8 hours of depositions and you found one inconsistency. Wow, that makes you a super lawyer.
Yeah.
He and I hate each other.
Yeah.
Uh, and so you can imagine you're 2 years into your career, get through all this. I was, so it really just kind of destroyed me and a lot of dreams that I had about what I wanted to do. And then from there, I learned to rebuild myself,
Mm,
and part of it was uh, knowing that I had to. There was no choice. I had to rebuild
mm,
myself. One of the interesting things for me was during that trial was during a time that Ariel Sharon was suing the New York Times,
mm,
and I was reading about that, and I was like, and I did not realize that you can actually go on offense when you're a witness.
mm,
I just thought you'd kind of, you're just kind of roadkill. And the other thing was Ollie North when he
mm,
testified before Congress, and
mm,
I saw that. Those are kind of like uh, my two models
mm,
that I went after. So the end result, Josh, make a long story even longer. We lost a trial, had $1 million plus verdict. Got my name in the paper. I was away on vacation. Had a television crew show up by my office. I wasn't there, thank God,
mm.
because that's never a good look.
Sure.
It's a really ugly look unless you really know how to do it. And
Mm,
the way you really do it is, first of all, you don't run. That's like the
right.
stupidest thing you can do, because that looks just pathetic. So then, first part overturned, partial overturned at the Court of Appeals in county, and then finally, eventually, completely reversed by the state Supreme Court. 6 years later after the verdict,
Mm, mm.
and so that was
Sure.
a
And that part didn't make it in the paper, did it?
no, it did
Yeah.
not. It did
Yeah.
not. It did not.
Right.
And the funny thing and the thing. So I was talking to the lawyer who wrote the appeal, and
Mm,
I said, so what does this thing in the Supreme Court, Arizona State Supreme Court, say? And he said, basically, the Supreme Court asked the presiding judge if he was awake during the trial. He said it was that bad.
yeah.
It was that bad of a spanking that he basically said, like, they were just like, did you fucking pay attention to anything going on? Because we lost so many rulings, in terms of evidence and things like that. It was just like it
Mm.
was kind of like, and people go like, oh, I'm gonna sue you. You have no fucking idea what happens in a lawsuit.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. People
I mean,
people don't know.
yeah, they think it's easy.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have a PhD in litigation,
Yeah.
having gone through that whole process.
Yeah,
And
I'm
you
sure.
know what that is, but
I
when
know.
you manage,
I do it every day.
yeah, I mean, it started in 1987 and ended in 1992.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough. Man, so that experience, how did you so you said you had to rebuild yourself. What did you do? What are some steps, like if someone's listening to this and they're kind of in that victim mentality for whatever reason? What are some steps that you think a guy could do to rebuild himself?
Well, I'm gonna self-promote here.
Okay.
Work with me,
Okay.
because that's exactly what we do. Is
Mm,
that my coaching program is about um, helping men reclaim their masculinity,
mhm,
and we do that. There's a on-demand video portion to it, and then there's a one-on-one coaching with me,
mm,
and so it's a process uh, the first thing, one of the first things, there's two things at the very beginning. Where are you at?
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, what do you want?
Mm.
Okay. And most people cannot, most people will lie about where they're at. They'll initially
Mhm.
start lying. And then after, as soon as you kind of get into it, like, okay, well, you told me that, but this is not consistent with what you said, 3 minutes ago. So which is it?
Mhm. Mhm.
So which is it? And you usually go, okay, I'm not, or sometimes I'll say like, I'm not feeling it. You're not telling the truth to me. I know
Mhm.
you're not. I know you're
Mhm.
lying. So that, and what do you want? Most people um, cannot tell you with great deal of clarity and specificity what they want.
Mm.
They're walking generalities, and walking generalities don't get stuff.
Mm.
They don't get anything. The other thing is, I think people try to do too much at the same time. There again, you end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
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 But for me, what I found my own coach. Actually, this is how old this was. This was how long ago, because this was popular. I had some cassettes.
Hmm.
I had some Tony Robbins cassettes, and I went through all of it. I actually did the exercises. And what was very interesting is that the life that I wrote about, in doing those exercises, I created for myself.
Yeah.
Literally, the house at the country club, on the golf course, blah, 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 all that, which I thought was completely out of, having gone through that initial experience, which I thought was completely out of reach for me, uh, I was able to achieve.
Yeah. So
Got married.
so if someone wants to meet with you and they hear that's coming, they hear what do you want? Are there some common things that you find that men want?
Oh, yeah. Usually the number one thing uh, is a lack of intimacy. They want, and I tell this to men. They go like, "Well, I want more sex, and you need to talk to my wife." And I
Mm.
go, "No, no, uh, no. There's two people in this equation, and you know, there's a reason why she doesn't want to have more sex,
Mm-hmm.
and some of it is physical, some of it is kind of like, just look at yourself in the mirror. Would you want to have sex with you?" Or the other, or there's a whole bunch of other things that kind of happen. But the whole thing is to, you women are looking for men who and the actions that they do, because everyone knows the right thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Even the guy that beats up his wife knows the right thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll do it again. I promise I'll be good. And they fucking do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the number one is the lack of intimacy. And I'll give your audience a free tip. And
Mm-hmm.
normally I don't work for free, but then I'm just like a lawyer. I don't work for free.
Right.
But this is pro bono. Uh, Three things never to say to your wife if you want more sex.
Mm.
Okay. First thing is, I want more sex. Okay.
Okay.
Don't say that. Next thing is, I want more sex. And guys, because it's worked so well the first two times, they'll say the third time, I want more sex. Now,
Okay.
when a woman hears that, first of all, it doesn't make her feel good, because it's going like, well, what's in it for me?
Mm.
Uh, but then the second thing is I think what they really are hearing is that, let me borrow your vagina for a few minutes.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
After I'm done, you can have it back. It'll be a little wet, but it'll still be yours, and you can have it back.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Right.
kind of what that, she may not think of it that completely that way, but she's saying like, he just wants my vagina. That's all.
Yeah. Sound
He,
makes them feel like an object. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, I kind of, yeah, but so it's like, yeah, if, God, don't say that. For
Uh-huh.
Christ's sake, don't say that, because that really that is a turn off to women.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you say instead? What would you recommend they say?
Oh, you have to pay for that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm sure you got some more people coming your way right now just by hearing that. Yeah,
You
they're
got
like,
to,
well,
Josh,
this
you got
guy
to pay
knows.
for that. That's the secret sauce. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. So,
So, but there's a whole the last module of my recorded on-demand video is how to get laid more frequently without begging.
Mm,
And
yeah.
the other thing is begging is a horrible thing because
Mm,
again, women don't respect men that beg,
mm,
and most of the time, they'll be how should I say bludgeoned into having sex with a man, and they're just like laying there waiting for the pounding to be over. Okay.
mm,
Oh God, let this happen quickly, and
mm,
then I can go and watch TV or do whatever. So
right.
yeah, men that beg, you're turning in your man card, and the sex is not very often, and it's not very good.
Mm. So now back to what you were saying though about what when they make a list of what they want. If someone's trying to figure out what they want, if they're coming to you, how specific of a goal do you think? Because I agree with you, like the generality thing is such a problem because if you don't have a specific goal, how do you possibly attain it? And I've been very successful in my life by having a giant goal split up into little goals that get me there,
Sure,
right?
exactly,
So
exactly.
so when you're sitting there and you're asking them, okay, what do you want? How specific do you think a person should be?
Oh, I'm very specific.
Mm,
I mean, okay. So the easiest thing to talk about is sex.
okay.
Okay. How
Hmm.
often do you want to have sex?
Hmm.
Well, I like to have it 2 or 3 times a week. How often are you having it now? Once a year.
Mm,
Uh, okay. There's no magic pill here, and I want to. Yes, at some point you may get to that, but don't expect to get that in 90 days or 6 months.
right.
Okay. It's like maybe we try for, since it's once a year or maybe less. How about we shoot for the grand total of once a month?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And then you move on from there to more frequently. But a
Hmm.
lot of it has to do with what's in it for her. And
Sure.
I do ask, man, okay, so you have sex. Uh, does your wife have an orgasm?
Yeah, that's what I was
Guys
gonna.
can't tell me.
I was gonna ask because I was sitting there thinking, how many of these men who aren't having sex, how many of them are even interested in whether their spouse, partner, whatever, is even interested in enjoying it? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, and again, if you've got low libido, low testosterone, things like that, you're not really into it that much, other than frustration. There's a lot of guys that are frustrated, but the whole thing is like, what's in it for her?
Sure.
That lyric from David Bowie, "Wham Bam, Thank You, Man." Well, that's a cool lyric, but it's not particularly doesn't leave the woman there satisfied with the situation. So it's uh, I think part of it, a big part of it is the how you set the framework
Hmm.
for intimacy,
Hmm.
and that's really one of the key things. And there's step by step that we talk about. And it's a little different for everyone.
Sure.
It's a little different for everyone.
Mm.
Yeah, but the yeah, it's somewhere along the way, and I have a webinar on the no sex marriage and kind of how it starts. Uh, so you get married, and you're basically fucking every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and then what happens is kids.
Mm.
Okay, and kids are cock blockers. Just they're cock blockers.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so next thing you know, those kids now they're crawling out of the crib and they're coming to your bed. And of course, okay, well that certainly cuts out any spontaneity there.
Mhm.
And so they keep on coming to your bed, and then you kind of get out of the habit of
Mhm.
this and that. And so even though they're not coming to your bed, there's still lots of stress about the kids. And I'm a badass businesswoman for a wife, but
Mhm.
even at that, 75% of them. And I was a very active dad in my kids' lives. But even
Mhm.
at that, 75% of the responsibility still fell on my wife.
Mhm.
And so there's all sorts of pressures there and here and this, and then guys get pissed off and
Mhm.
start moping.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make them more attractive. It doesn't endear them to things. And so it's a vicious cycle. And next thing you know, what happens is that the kids leave the house, they go off to college or whatever. Uh, the wife and the husband are empty nesters, and she files for divorce.
Mm.
I was stunned. I read this in a marketing book where this guy said that 50% of divorces in couples over 50 are initiated by the woman.
Hmm.
I was stunned by that. I thought it was guys looking for a trophy wife.
Mm.
You know,
But
that,
the
I
women,
would that would have been my guess.
right? But the women,
But
but the women are doing it.
right, the women are doing it, and he talks about the marketing. He said, so that's a great group to market to, especially certain services, because they're spending shitloads of money on dentistry. They're spending shitloads of money on clothes, shitloads of money on plastic surgery, all sorts of shit that they're spending
Hmm.
money on.
Hmm.
They're basically remodeling themselves.
Hmm. So, do you think that part of this masculinity? I've heard some people say that women, even though they claim to want men that are softer, they're actually attracted to more masculine men. And as you get older and you're losing testosterone, I mean, are there other certain traits that you would say are attractive traits for men and masculine men?
Well, I think basically having a strong body, being strong physically, having an attitude, a good attitude about life. I think
Mm,
that's probably one of the big things. I mean, if you've got a shitty attitude about life, guess what? Your life's going to be shitty.
mm,
And the other thing that's really important, and if you don't have a good relationship with yourself,
mm,
you're fucked. You
mm.
can't have a good relationship with anyone else. You're totally fucked if you don't have a good relationship with yourself. And that goes to the conversation inside your head.
Yeah. How do you change that?
There's some books, there's some programming. Part of it is also asking yourself the right questions.
Mm,
And
okay.
it has to, initially it's a conscious thing, and that was when I had the victim mentality. It was very much ingrained, asking the wrong questions myself, and
Hmm.
then I was able to turn that around with some of the coaching that I got through Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other things. I'm going like, okay, I can't I can't continue asking myself those questions because they're not empowering to me.
Mm,
They're not focusing me on solutions.
mm. So, do you think that is the one of the bigger things is asking yourself questions that lead to solutions rather than just whining and complaining?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I use the example. Okay, a tree falls, and this may be a little bit more parallel, not quite addressing that. A tree falls in the road,
Mhm.
and it's blocking your ability to go down that road. Does it matter if lightning struck the tree and it knocked it down? Does it matter if the tree died and fell down? Does it matter if it was blown down by wind or somebody chopped it down? Does any of that matter to getting that tree out of the road so you can continue your journey? And the answer
Mhm.
is no.
Right.
The solution to that has nothing to do with what caused the tree to end up in the road.
Mm.
And so this is quite often, this is where people like in therapy,
Mhm.
they go to they again what that journalist talked about, ingrain the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the question is, how do you get yourself in solution mode so that you're continually um, uh, finding solutions to challenges? And
Yeah.
my wife and I have this rule, because bad shit happens. Bad shit happens all the time. Sometimes when you really bad shit. I had that experience a few years ago, and we kind of allow ourselves a set amount of time to mope,
Mm.
because sometimes you do need to feel sorry for yourself,
Sure.
but not for months, maybe for a day, several days, but not, and so we usually put like kind of a moping period that we can mope and then we move on to
Yeah.
solutions.
I do that with my kids. I got 4 of them, and I told my daughter one time, she got upset. She tried out for I think she was trying out for a theater thing, didn't get the part she wanted. She was kind of upset, and I just said, "All right, you can give yourself the night to be upset about it, and then tomorrow you got this other part, so focus on that and be the best person. Be the best person for that part you possibly can be." And it worked out
Absolutely.
for her. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, I think that's great advice, and it's really interesting because you catch yourself. I think it's real easy, especially when you're in the middle of like a difficult spot, to just get ingrained in the fact that you're even in the spot. Like
Yeah.
it's so frustrating to sit there and say, "Why am I in this spot?" I mean, I catch myself doing that, right? You just,
Yeah.
why am I even in this spot? What did I do to deserve this? It doesn't really matter what you did to deserve it, right? You're in the spot, you got to get out of it.
Yeah.
So
And your brain will give you all sorts of reasons why you're in that spot. It'll answer
sure,
that question easily.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
that's that's not that's it'll give you all sorts of, but that's not a solution oriented question.
And the other thing I found really interesting about what you said, because I think about this, like I've interviewed a lot of therapists, I've seen therapists, I've talked to them, I've friends that are therapists, and one thing that I find is a lot of the therapists that I've interviewed or talked to, they really want to focus on the reasons why people are acting poorly, why they're acting bad, why their lives aren't going well. They want to focus on, well, your mom did this or your dad did that, or when you were a kid this happened and that's why you react this way. And that's all well and good. But then when it comes to the point where they got to, okay, so here's the tools now to change those things, that part doesn't happen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
so,
yeah. I mean, not to badmouth therapists, which I sometimes I do, but the question is, you know, the past doesn't necessarily affect the future,
mhm,
and the solution may not be in reviewing the past.
mhm.
More likely than not, it's not in reviewing the past. And there's lots of people that have had crappy parents, had come from crappy situations, and have done very well.
Yeah, like most of the people who do well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Actually,
yeah, yeah. A lot of people that come from crappy situations do really well,
yeah.
and they talk about wealth. Wealth shifts
Mhm.
from generation to generation. It's not something that continues on. It's not something that continues on in a straight line. So it does. I can't remember now the statistics, but basically the top 10% is not a locked in group.
Mm.
They
Mhm.
shift in and out of that tier.
It's funny you bring that up because a lot of people don't believe that because they're being fed this idea that, oh, the reason that they're there is because they have generational wealth or someone put them there, or they've oppressed a group of people and that's how they're where they
Oh yeah.
are. And it feels like a lot of the people that I know, at least, don't believe that they can. You know what
Well,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. If you start from there, then you can't.
Right.
I had a patient whose dad was a billionaire,
Mm,
and his dad essentially cut him off except for healthcare,
mm,
because he was heavy into drugs. His jobs consisted of doing yards and riding his bicycle because he couldn't afford a car, or I think maybe he had too many DUIs and things like that. And and there are 3 sons. 2 of them turned out really bad, and one is working with his dad. So the generational wealth does not always transfer. And
mm,
then there's the third generation thing about businesses, a business that's started by, let's say, one person, by the third generation it's not functioning because
mm.
the third generation doesn't have the drive and the desire to do that business. Now, there's always exceptions to that, obviously,
Sure.
but that's actually fairly common.
That's interesting. How do you, as a father, who has been, who's done these things, has been successful, has drive. How do you instill that in your kids?
By example,
Mm, mhm,
you can't fake it. Now, there are times now, my one daughter is 25 and the other one's 27. That they're both successful. They're doing really, really well. And they're, I mean, there are times now that I have said like, okay, don't do as I do as I say.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were really honest with them. They were growing up.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that people don't realize is that uh, when the kids are younger, there's a program that said like there were several things to do with your kids to have establish a good relationship. One of them was to go to church, which I think is real important, even though my kids don't go to church anymore. But I didn't go to church in my 20s either. And then the other thing is to have dinner every night with them. And so that was a real important thing. And we did that, and, as they got older and there were activities, they both were in sports and things like that. And that kind of got to be more and more of a challenge. But we really strive to have dinner, and then it got to, then kind of at some point it just became Sunday dinner. But now they live well. One of them just kind of came back because she's been on the road, and she's going to spend a few months with us before she gets back on the road. My one daughter actually both my kids were completely remote, but one of them bought a pickup and a trailer and traveled from national forest to national forest in the western part of the United States. And she was basically set up completely remote in her trailer. So she just opened up her computer and worked from anywhere. And the other one also works completely remote. But yeah, and so one of the things I do now, if you have kids that are far away, is that I have once a month, and that's about the right amount of time. Once a month, I have a scheduled happy hour with them.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. My kids, they're all teenagers now, except for one. They're, 17, 15, 13, and 11. And, I've been telling my teenagers, I go, listen, there are some things that I've done right. There are some things that I probably have done wrong. You just do the things that I do right, try to emulate them when you get to be my age, and the things I did wrong, do something different. I'm not going to get it all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not perfect.
Yeah. So let me, as we reach the end of this, I really appreciate your time. I ask everybody 3 questions, and I want to ask them to you. First one, what do you think is your biggest success in life?
My marriage.
Why is that? Why is that your most successful?
I'm married to my best friend, and we have a great marriage at this point. She's in her 63, I'm 72, and we have a great marriage.
That's awesome.
At so many different levels. At so many different levels.
That's awesome. So what would you say is your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure was when the shit hit the fan in 2007. I thought we were prepared, but it was that was the third recession I went through, but most of them were only about a year and a half, and you popped right out. That one, even though the economists will tell you that it ended in whatever, I don't think that recession actually ended until people started having consumer confidence, and that did not happen until Donald Trump was president. I mean, he's a tremendous cheerleader. I know he puts out mean tweets and he says stuff that sometimes I cringe at, but at the end of the day, he gets results.
Okay. And then the final question is that someday down the road, you're obviously very healthy, but 20 years from now, you might pass away. And when you do, there'll be a funeral. Someone will give a eulogy. What's one thing you hope somebody says about you in your eulogy?
That I affected them positively. I was a positive influence in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing, right? Is making sure you're a positive influence in the world.
Yeah. So that I helped them. I helped those people be a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
And then, so that's kind of the big thing. So that's kind of the those are that's thing. to be a better version of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Well, listen, if people want to come and be a better, more masculine of themselves, where do they find you?
You can go to the standard.academy,
Mhm.
and there's plenty of options there to reach out to me. If you want to, yeah, that's probably the best place.
Okay.
And you can find me also at Orest at OREST at Orest at the standard.academy. That's my email. And
Mhm.
so I do reply to it. I don't reply to it right away. I don't start looking at my email until about 10 or 11 o'clock in the
Okay.
morning because I find that I could put on other people's agenda and not mine.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, great. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, Dr. Orest. And, for those who've been following, keep following. We got more guests coming on. Follow Dr. Orest. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and get your perspective on these things. And, I hope we can do this again sometime.
All right. Sounds great. Josh, thank you. Enjoyed the conversation. And I hope your listeners find some value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hold on.